Oh, did you guys check audio? Everybody's injured. I'm last in the waiver order. Our pets' heads are falling off.
It's true. But don't panic. We've got fantasy experts for that.
Will they help us find sneaky good plays for this weekend's slate?
Indeed they will. And don't forget our baseball guys, chasing and fading some big salaries, and Steve is fighting people.
Whew, I feel better already.
That's what we do here on The Sweat.
You know, I don't think that bird's head fell off. I think you actually killed it.
Oh, did I rip its head off?
You murdered that bird.
So weird.
Pretty bird. All right, howdy ho, people of the internet. We are talking about helping you make money, so let's be about that. And that's what we do here every night, 6 o'clock Eastern, on The Sweat, alongside Jessie Coffield. I'm Emerson Lotzia.
Now, allow me to just introduce you to our football panel this evening. We got Reed Fowler of DK Live, Karin Phillips of the New York Daily News, and the Action Network's Ian Hartitz, who you can find on the new Action Network app available on Android and iPhone.
All right, boys, let's dip our tiny little toes into the waiver wire here. Give us some players who could be available to pick up for a season-long team or for just a week 1 flyer, or a 1-week flyer, rather. Starting with you, Reed, give us a quarterback you'd go after.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play the pretty bird analogy of going after some guys not named Sam Bradford, sorry, Steve Buchanan, it's going to be Case Keenum for me as a week 2 flyer. He's at 5,800 on DK. But even if you want to play him as a streamer in your season long, look, this guy is going up against Oakland, who, what we saw last night, doesn't really have a good defense. He threw 3 picks, obviously, so it's not something that's your typical Case Keenum that we know and love. But if you look at what he did, especially with those receivers, he had 16 receptions, close to 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Case Keenum is going to be a solid play. They're going to be at home. Oakland is traveling to Denver. We know what that altitude does, so I like Case.
Hey, Karin, who do you like for maybe a week 1 flyer? Or we're thinking maybe someone season long here?
So the smart choice would be like Andy Dalton here, and maybe see if you can get him to see what he could do something. But I have like also an out-of-the-box choice as well.
Okay, let's hear it.
See if maybe you can finagle Matt Stafford away. Like, look, I know he was absolutely horrible the other night. But as a Michigan native, watching Lions football, Matt Stafford either looks like the worst quarterback ever or a guy who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So since he came off a game that bad, if there's any way that you can get him in week 2, I think he's probably going to be really good because that's how Matt Stafford is. He's either up here or he's complete trash. So since he was just complete trash, why not?
Matt Patricia learning that it's much more difficult to beat the Jets when you're in Detroit than it is when you're with New England. Ian, who do you like? Who could you possibly be reaching for? Maybe a diamond in the rough on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I'm looking at a DraftKings favorite, Ty God Taylor. New system, new team, same result. I mean, we saw he had an inefficient passing day, against a good Steelers pass defense, not the best weather conditions, but still had 77 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to save the day. So we're always getting out with Tyrod, and against the Saints defense that, we just saw get ripped apart by Ryan Fitzpatrick, and runs a bunch of man coverage, so that can sometimes help the rushing quarterbacks and when the DBs have their back to the passer. So when it's only one of 2 week 2 games that have an over-under of at least 50 points, I'll take the Russian quarterback.
Man, it's like the most Browns thing ever to end a losing streak with a tie.
Yeah, best start since 2004. All right, Karin, any running backs you like who are worth scooping up on the waiver wire?
I'm going to go with TJ Yeldon here. It probably sounds like the easy choice, but I'm an easy guy. I don't try to make stuff hard. So let's just go with TJ.
We like that about you.
Yeah, and back on the Cleveland Browns thing, they completely sold us a dream, guys. Completely sold us a dream.
That's because you were so into Hard Knocks, man. They sold you, all right? That's your problem.
You were drinking the Kool-Aid.
Documentary.
You can't drink the Kool-Aid, man.
That's a good pick, though, especially if like Leonard Fournette's still dealing with that hamstring injury. I mean, Yeldon's going to get in there and tear it up.
All right, Ian, running backs. What about you? Who are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm on Yeldon as well, and you guys said it. We got Leonard Fournette dealing with a hamstring injury right now. Doug Marrone said it's not that serious, but he said that last year when Fournette was missing time with a lower body injury. So we still saw the Jaguars average over 30 points per game in 3 games without Fournette last year. This offense really is just fine without him, and we saw T.J. Yeldon outsnapped Corey Grant 27-4 in the second half last week. Yeldon ended up with 21 combined carries and targets. Grant only had 1 rush attempt. So I think we'll see more of a closer committee moving forward, but Yeldon's looking like, at the very least, the 1A guy in Jacksonville if Fournette's out.
Reed, Emerson is foaming at the mouth with all this Jacksonville talk. So which running back are you looking at? Is it Yeldon? Come on.
Yeah, can't look at Emerson. It makes everything awkward. But, I mean, Yeldon's a good call. I mean, if he's on your waiver wire, definitely he's a #1 priority yet. If Fournette is healthy, I think you would still want to do that. But I'm looking at Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack was someone who was on the field before the game started, going up against Cincy, just didn't make it. They wanted to keep him healthy. But Nyheim Hines and the other guys over there, Wilkins, didn't do much to really prove their case as a starting running back. Well, this is going to be a committee. And I think Marlon Mack, you saw last year when Frank Gore was there, Marlon Mack was, before he got hurt, the guy who was trending to become the starting running back. At 4,500 on DraftKings, he's a potential GPP play to see if he's good. But I like him in terms of long-term. I think, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, you're not going to see extreme value on return, but Marlon Mack should be the starting running back. And that defense is terrible. So if you feel like they got to come back, Marlon Mack's going to be in the field.
All right, talking wide receiver now. Who are you peeping, Ian?
Yeah, I'm looking at Brandon Marshall in Seattle. It feels wrong. It sounds wrong. But look, now we got Doug Baldwin dealing with problems with both of his knees, and this is still an offense that's trying to replace Jimmy Graham, who had the 3rd most red zone targets in the league over the last 2 years. So if we just remove kind of position designations for a second, I mean, Jimmy Graham scored 9 of his 10 touchdowns last year in the slot or as a wide receiver. He's 6'6" and 260 pounds. Brandon Marshall, he's 6'5" and 230 pounds and has a history of, red zone dominance. Led the team with 6 targets last week. 2 of those were in the red zone. I'm expecting more big things to come from Brandon Marshall if Baldwin's going to remain sidelined.
Yeah, he's likely to see more targets, as is Mr. Lockett. But Marshall, built by UCF. Fun fact for you there, guys. Reed, who you like in the wide receivers? Waiver wires, someone to pick up this week.
I mean, it's not like Emerson the college. It's a little inside joke for all you internet guys out there. Ask Emerson on Twitter about that. But if it's not, I think Brandon Marshall's a great call. But it's going to be Kenny Golladay. He's around that cusp of about 40 to 50% owned. He should have been drafted, really, to be honest, in your season-long drafts. But Kenny Golladay saw a ton of targets. Sure, it was game script, but if you look at what Stafford is doing and what Karan is saying, Stafford is a guy who will throw the ball. He is a fantasy quarterback. He's not as bad as the other guys like Bortles when it comes to garbage time. But if you look at Stafford and what he does and how he can essentially, you can provide fantasy value for a bunch of receivers there. Kenny Golladay, as a big-bodied receiver, gets a lot of targets, he wins those 50-50 balls. So I like that. I like Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, well, like Karan mentioned earlier, we don't really know which Stafford's going to be throwing him the football. But, Karan, who do you like in the wide receiver department here?
Have no idea what Stafford's going to do, but my wild card for the wide receiver is John Ross. Listen, there's only one thing we know about that guy is that he's really, really fast. So at some point, it just seems like this really fast guy is going to be able to catch a ball and run past people and score touchdowns. So if you can pick him up, I say why not? Do like I do on video games. Just send him on go routes and just chuck it up there, just like Matt Stafford does. It's going to work eventually.
Great go-to
strategy. I like
strategy.
Why not? I love that attitude. Yeah, why not? I like that.
He's fast.
Listen, we're just picking people up. Why not?
And that's probably what Stafford's saying in the huddle, too. All right, guys, just give me a go route here, Mr. Golladay.
And I'm going to check it. All right, any possible tight ends with current low ownership in the league that you think are worth going after, Reed?
I think the obvious answer here is potentially Jonnu Smith. I mean, I would stay away from some of those guys in Seattle. I think that's a fool's errand to pick up some of these guys. But Jonnu Smith, who was compared in his rookie season coming out of college to Delaney Walker. So if you want someone who is not going to have the same amount of value that Delaney Walker has, Jonnu Smith, and if you think Blaine Gabbert is going to be out there, even if Mariota's out there, the middle of the field is where he and this team wants to go. Jonnu Smith is probably 2% owned, 5% owned in most season-long leagues. And so if you want a week one, an early season waiver ad for tight end, I would go Jonnu Smith.
Ian, Reed's saying stay away from anybody in Seattle, but Will Dissly looking pretty good. Russell Wilson throwing him a lot. So anybody you see, maybe you want to take a risk on Seattle?
Oh man, yeah, I'll tell you what. When Russell Wilson can get something named Will Dissly over 100 yards, I mean, you know he's special. But I'm actually looking in Washington. We saw Jordan Reed was healthy last week, but Vernon Davis still at 59% of the snaps. They actually use Reed in the slot or as a wide receiver 19 different times, which really isn't good for Jamison Crowder. But I mean, Vernon Davis, if you look at Alex Smith's career, he was his third most efficient receiver ever in terms of adjusted yards per attempt, behind only Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So they have a long relationship together. And as you know, with Jordan Reed, I mean, it's fun when he's on the field, but we haven't been able to see that too often over the years. So I wouldn't play Vernon this week, but I like to stay one step ahead of the Jordan Reed ticking time bomb.
Karan, any tight ends you're interested in?
Potentially Antonio Gates here, just looking from the shoes and POV of Phillip Rivers. If I've been a guy who's been in the league for it feels like 50 years and I've never won anything, and my best friend comes back to town, I'm throwing him the ball every time.
All right, boys. We'll look at some of the biggest injuries from week 1 coming up with you three, plus who our baseball guys think you need to be chasing and fading this evening.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The long wait for Josh Donaldson is finally coming to a close. On Monday, Indians manager Terry Francona announced that slugger Josh Donaldson will be activated off the 10-day DL and will start at third base. Donaldson has been out since May with a calf issue and was just traded to Cleveland in a deal with the Blue Jays. Prior to going down with that injury, the former MVP was hitting .234, along with 5 home runs and 16 RBI in 36 games played. During 3 games in his rehab assignment this past week, Donaldson has gone 2 for 10 with 1 home run. And for folks that are chomping at the bit to get Donaldson in their lineup Tuesday night, he's priced in at $4,500 for the slate.
All right, welcome back, guys. We are ready to sweat some baseball with our panel of experts. Please stop laughing. And please say hello to Steve Buchanan of DK Live and Greg Ehrenberg.
All right, we're jumping right into Chase or Fade. Steve, do you agree or disagree that Josh Donaldson will have a real impact for the Indians in the playoffs?
Well, first of all, it's really good to have you back. You know, someone who knows who I am. It's good to have you.
Josh, how many times do I have to apologize, Steve? I'm sorry.
I heard about this. This blew up on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, don't worry. The seasoned vet's back.
I mean, the worst part was she did the segment. You know, she was the one who hosted that segment. But, you know, whatever. Hey, that's fine. Water under the bridge. Let's go, you know, talk about Josh Donaldson here. I mean, yeah, of course he's going to be a big part if he remains healthy. I mean, he's another power bat that they can rely on in the heart of that lineup there. I mean, look at the lineup that Tyler Glasnow has to face today. Francisco Lindor, Michael Brantley, Jose Ramirez, Edwin Encarnacion, and now Donaldson. I mean, that's literally 5 guys that can go deep here. I mean, that's a crazy, crazy lineup. Good luck to anybody who has to face them in the playoffs. That is a monster team you're gonna have to face, but hopefully Donaldson can stay healthy.
Yeah, Steve, real quick, $4,500 seems maybe a little too pricey for a guy playing in his first Major League Baseball game since May 28th.
Absolutely, but at the same time, I mean, he's going to have so many RBI opportunities going forward. I mean, it's someone you definitely have to consider. But in the first game back, yeah, I'd kind of call the expectations there.
All right, cool. Greg, what do you think? Will this guy make a real impact with the Indians?
Well, first off, can we I'm a little left out of loop here. What happened with nobody knowing who Steve was? That's very important information.
Okay, Greg, let me tell you a little story. I was tossing to something that we had filmed prior the day before, and I accidentally said that it was Alex Jankowski and Reed Fowler, but it was Steve Buchanan and Reed Fowler. I've since apologized a million times. It was my fault, you know, and I did apologize, but sorry isn't good enough. Steve, what do you want from me?
Steve,
look, we got an hour. Let's just move us along.
Steve,
okay,
you're 2 times more handsome than Alex.
Now
too.
Greg. Now you're in on it. You're in on the joke. I'm going to call you by the right name. Okay, everybody.
Josh Donaldson making a real impact for the Indians in the playoffs. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely chasing this. I think people can forget how good Donaldson is, but he's basically been a perennial Gold Glove and MVP candidate the last few years. He's just been injured a little bit this year, and if the shoulder is totally healthy, I definitely think that he's worthwhile pickup for the Indians. He's going to have a big impact. And he also fills a need for them in an indirect way. They didn't need help at third base, but now Jose Ramirez can move over to second base. They need help at second base, but they did need help in center field. Now Jason Kipnis moving from second base to center field. So we have a need filled by the Indians, by Donaldson, even if it's not a direct way that he's helping them fill their center field void.
Yeah, the 2015 AL MVP officially activated will start at third base tonight for the Indians against the Rays. Oh, by the way, the Yankees, Astros, and Red Sox are reportedly annoyed over this trade.
Ooh, yeah. Reportedly annoyed. All right, well, thanks to a rain out last night, Jacob DeGrom is now on this slate, and as such, he should be a lock for your rosters tonight. Are you chasing or fading this, Greg?
Yeah, I'm going to be chasing this. To me, just DeGrom's really safe and easy point. Oh, Steve, nobody knows who you are. Don't be shaking your head at me. But DeGrom, it's just easy points tonight. I know he's really expensive, but if you look at the matchup, the Marlins 85 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. DeGrom a 1.59 ERA at home, and he scored at least 21 DK points in 7 consecutive outings. I don't know that he's a lock to be paying off the $13,500 price tag, but he's not going to hurt any lineups, and there's definitely the upside for him to be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate.
Steve, Greg mentioned he's going to be pricey, $13,500. Is he a lock? Do you have to pay up for him?
I mean, look at the two guys who wanted to pay up for Corey Kluber last night didn't make the show tonight. So what does that say about paying up for pitching? Okay, Kluber couldn't even get to the second inning, and the guy who said don't play him is right here. Okay, so there's how you have that. Look, he's just way too expensive tonight. I don't pay for guys who are over 12K. It just absolutely cripples the rest of your lineup. I mean, you're realistically looking for 40-plus DK fantasy points for DeGrom tonight if you want him to pay off that salary. He's facing this team for the 4th time, and he hasn't exactly dominated them when he has. 19 innings, 7 runs on 17 hits with a K-to-walk ratio of 22-4, averages out to just 19.3 DK fantasy points. You can get that type of production way down the list tonight. You don't have to go to DeGrom and cripple the rest of your lineup. There's so many good stacks tonight. The Red Sox, the Yankees, pay up for those, pay down at pitcher.
Guys, Chris Sale is making his return from the DL tonight. He's priced at $13,600. He will be on a 40-pitch limit. So Nathan Eovaldi is scheduled to take the reins after that moment. So Steve, Eovaldi is a viable option tonight in your SP2 slot at 7.6. You chasing or fading that?
God, absolutely fading this one.
Yeah.
I mean, Eovaldi's moved to the bullpen, not because he's pitching so well. They want to use him every game. They want to use him as little as possible at this point. I mean, he's averaged just 5.74 DK fantasy points over his last 5 starts. And the Blue Jays are hitting well right now. 333 WOBA with a 196 isolated power, 37% hard hit rate. If anything, I think the Blue Jays are actually a really good stacking option tonight because, yeah, they'll get the first 2 innings with Chris Sale, but then you get the rest of the Boston bullpen for, 7 innings. I mean, boy, talk about striking gold. And their price, like they're facing Sale, they are just so cheap tonight. Stack the Blue Jays. It might go overlooked, which is crazy. No Eovaldi.
All right, the sweatometer is cooking. How insane would you have to be to pay that money for Chris Sale, though, Steve?
Oh, just don't even play anymore. Just close your account.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Greg, what do you think here? Is Eovaldi an option tonight after he comes in to take over for Chris Sale? He's on that 40-pitch limit?
No, definitely not. I have to agree with Steve on this one. Even though Eovaldi was a starting pitcher, he wasn't really going deep into games. His last few outings, 4 innings, 2 innings, 3 innings. So 7,600, he's basically just a long reliever at this point. I don't expect him to go the final 7 innings of the game. So I think that even though maybe it's a little cheaper what we'd expect for a starting pitcher, that's not really what his role is at this point. It's really hard to see him paying off the price tag.
All right, well, Greg, there are lots of options over 5K for hitters, but you should save money and go with Oakland third baseman Matt Chapman at 4.9K. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I'll chase Chapman tonight. It's a really good matchup for him against Cobb. 4.97 ERA for the season. He's gotten hit really hard. Also, park upgrade for Chapman. He's going from a pitcher's park in Oakland to a really strong hitter's park in Baltimore. And he's also a reverse splits hitter. He's done better against righties than lefties this year. What was it? A 150 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year versus 120 against lefties. So him facing a righty to me is more of an upgrade than a downgrade. I really like the spot for Chapman.
Steve, what do you think? He does well on the road.
Yeah, I definitely like Oakland here tonight against Cobb. Moves to a much better ballpark, Camden Yards. And the A's have been hitting really well as of late. One of the highest isolated powers in the league over the last 2 weeks at 196. And like Greg was saying, his numbers on the road are just absolutely, he just crushes here. 424 WOBA, 299 isolated power, and a 47% hard hit rate with 14 of his 22 home runs. You have to like this spot for it here. So absolutely. Chapman and the A's altogether, I think, are a great play tonight.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to bring back our NFL panel shortly to get the latest injury news and tell you how it'll affect this weekend's slate.
But first, check out Adam Kaufman catching up with Tiki Barber over the weekend at the DK Kickoff Bash in New Jersey.
What I want to know from you, are you a fantasy football guy?
I am, and it's really hard for me because I overanalyze fantasy sports. So I want to look at it as this guy's going to help my team win.
Yeah.
But that's different than helping my team win in fantasy.
Right.
And so I end up overthinking when I draft, and it screws me in the long run. But I'm slowly starting to change, and I'm slowly starting to look at things like, how many targets did this guy have? Yeah. Not how many catches, how many targets does this guy have?
How much usage is he getting?
What's his usage rate? What's his effectiveness once he does get those catches? And it's helped a little bit, but it's the analyst in me. I can't help but overthink.
Do you dive real deep into what are the weather conditions going to be on that day? Especially as a former player, like I don't know if I want to play a guy when it's wet out there. Maybe a running back because he'll carry the ball.
Well, so here's the thing. There's a thing with running backs called a mutter, right? A guy who's just great in bad weather, sloppy turf, chewed up grass, all those things. If you can find one of those mutters, it's usually guys with heavy lower bodies because they just sink into the ground and they can keep their balance when they're running. You take them on a rainy day. But you get fooled because you're like, all right, it's raining, it's horrible, but it's AstroTurf. But does the same apply? And it doesn't. It's not the same type. It's actually worse because you slide so much on turf. So you look at the weather, you look at the conditions, the temperature, what's the turf like. You got to do all this research, which is hard. So you want to just be emotional. You know what I mean? You want to just be like, I love that guy. He had 180 yards. I want that guy. You can't win that way.
I'll tell you who's emotional is your guy Brandon Jacobs, because when we were talking, I said, how do you feel about fantasy football? He said, I'll tell you what I hate about fantasy sports. I am a giant. I am a giant through and through. I understand you take Saquon Barkley, you put him on your team. I do not understand how you could, in good conscience, draft Ezekiel Elliott to your fantasy team if you're a Giants fan. Because by rooting for Ezekiel Elliott, you are rooting for the Cowboys. And therefore rooting against the Giants. Like, he went deep, psychologically deep with this.
So when I was playing, that was my philosophy. It was like, why? Don't tell me about fantasy. The only thing I care about is whether or not I win, and the guys that I don't want to win lose. You know what I mean? The Eagles, the Cowboys, the Redskins. As long as they lose, then I'm happy because it's helping us potentially win a division. But it's interesting. Like, as I transitioned into media and started to be in newsrooms, where it's not like a locker room full of athletes. It's just like they're guys, and they love sports, and you realize
a bunch of nerds. You could say it
exactly. But it's a connection. You know what I mean? You like have these leagues, and you put up whatever $5, $10, $20. You do a daily fantasy, whatever it is. It's like it's real and it's like emotional and it's connecting. I don't think I realized that when I was a player. I realize it now that I'm retired and on the other side of the camera.
I know fantasy football is a lot bigger now than when you played, but you played, what, a dozen years ago at this point. It's not like season long. DFS wasn't really a thing, but season long, that was still a big thing. Yeah. And so do you remember like how much people, I don't know about social media, but how much people would bug you out at a restaurant, grocery store, whatever, about, hey, man, you really screwed me on Sunday.
Yeah, well, you know what I found when I traveled?
Okay.
People who shouldn't, care would comment to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Great game. I'm like, why do you care? You're like a Charger fan. Why do you care? No, I had you on my fantasy team.
Yeah, there it is.
And so I was one of those sleeper picks because I wasn't traditional, but I'd get a ton.
You always put up yards, though. I don't even see how you could be a sleeper pick.
That's right, because I'd always put up, but nobody wanted to believe it.
You went for almost 4,000 yards your last 2 years.
No, I did. Really, I did go for 4,000 yards my last 2 years, but people didn't know if it was going to always be there.
Right.
So it's cool, though. I mean, my standard response was, all right, where's my cut? I expect 10%. Where's my cut?
Hello again, everyone, and look who we have here again. Reed Fowler, Karin Phillips, Ian Harditz. Good to have you guys. We're also hoping to bring in a little bonus special guest. So a little tease there for everyone at home just to stick with us.
Yeah, stick with us. We're not sure when that person will be there.
Nope.
But right now we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers here. He's dealing with a left knee injury. He played on it in the second half Sunday night was unreal, throwing 3 touchdowns. Who could forget that? I mean, the memes that were on the internet just like going off. It was like Aaron Rodgers fans, and then it was like Aaron Rodgers fans now, and they just kept changing.
Yeah,
so,
it really sucked for you if you were playing against Aaron Rodgers. That's for sure. Reed, I want to ask you this. Rodgers says he's not ready to promise that he's going to play this week, but are you going to stay with him if he does?
No, I mean, it's a far cry from his press conference or his interview right after the game where he said, I'm definitely going to play against the Vikings. Now, the Vikings is they're the ones that broke his collarbone and where he was out all of last season. So at the 3rd highest price in the slate, I mean, why would you even risk it? I think with Minnesota's defense, like, look what they did with Jimmy G, who was fully healthy, gave him his first loss, 3 picks, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, recovery, and the list goes on and on and on. Minnesota's defense is really, really good. So this team, and if you look at Rodgers too, especially against Minnesota, you like those bonus points with rushing ability, but he has one leg. Man, he can pass with one leg. We saw that, but he definitely can't run with one leg. He's only got about 5 attempts for, I think, around 40 yards in the 3 games that he's played. So he doesn't give you that bonus of being able to run and get yardage. So I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, operating that no-huddle offense, it almost looked like, though, that the entire offensive group and the offense in general just evolved. So, Ian, are you going to stay with Aaron Rodgers if he plays? We could see that he can play on one leg.
Oh, I want all the Aaron Rodgers I can get. Look, the Vikings are a very tough matchup. You know who else is a very tough matchup? Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field. He's averaged 25 points per game there since 2014. I mean, really takes the entire offense to a different level at home. But let's also look back at 2016 when he had this really bad hamstring injury that limited his rushing ability. He went from averaging 25.6 DraftKings points per game in 11 games before to 26.8 points per game in 8 games after. So he's proven again and again he's capable of playing hobbled. So, you know, if I can get reduced ownership on, you know, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league, I'm going to take it.
So reduced ownership with possibly the best quarterback in the league. Karin, sounds like a pretty good reason to stay with him.
Oh, no. You know what this reminds me of? Like when your friend calls you on Monday and like, hey, we're going out on Friday. And then you check in on Thursday, like, are we still going on Friday? And they're like, maybe. Because Sunday after the game, he was really fired up and had us believing like he was going to play. I'm not messing with this dude. Look, we know what he did on Sunday, but me and Aaron Rodgers are the same age in that 34. And I can tell you, there are a lot of things you could do on one leg, but this isn't one of them because you need both your legs at 34 because we're old.
All right,
so
real quick, would you take an injured Aaron Rodgers over a healthy Matt Stafford?
Depends on the Sunday.
Oh, God.
Oh,
okay.
man.
Wow.
That's a little
guys,
dark.
Our special guest is here with us now.
Yeah, our special guest is Dr. Seelan Parekh of Fantasy Doctors. I don't know if you could just hear us, but we're talking Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we saw him go down. We saw him injure his left knee. He played on it in the second half, Doctor. So he did incredible on Sunday, but what's the concern if he continues to play on it moving forward?
Well, the big issue is what's really going on, and we don't have a lot of clarity on that. If you look at the video, and I'm going to show you a little model here. This is looking at the front of your knee. This is your right knee. I'm giving you the model, Reed.
Oh, I like this.
The kneecap's gone, and what we were really concerned about is him damaging the medial collateral ligament based on the video. Now, Aaron Rodgers yesterday at the podium was saying that he had some cartilage damage. And so if you think about the cartilage, you're looking at the cushion inside his joint. Now, the bottom line is if it's cartilage damage, they can numb him up, and Aaron Rodgers is good to go. I think he's a safe pick, and you put him in your roster because Aaron Rodgers showed us that even with one leg, he can throw, and he can throw effectively. And I was playing against him, and I got burned, unfortunately. So I would stick with Aaron Rodgers. If it is the MCL strain, he's going to be limited in his running, but he should be fine with his arm, and he showed that again to us on Sunday.
Doctor, the show and tell is phenomenal. I believe last time we talked to you,
visual aids.
You were in a bathroom in Paris on Skype.
But
so
we love good visual aids. But
but I wasn't on the toilet. I was just standing there.
That's true. I left that part out.
Yeah, that was an ambiguous statement, Emerson. He was just trying to get a good Wi-Fi connection. Now, Dr. P, let's stick with some knee talk. Doug Baldwin was already dealing with an ailing knee, is now dealing with an MCL injury to what was supposed to be his healthy knee. Could this have been caused because he was favoring his other knee too much?
I think it's just, a freak accident where you really twist that medial collateral ligament, and he's got a grade 2. So this is a more serious issue than a grade 1, which potentially is what Aaron Rodgers had. So 2 to 4 weeks is the timeline for him to return to play. But now you've got a guy who's got 2 bum knees, and now I get really concerned about his effectiveness in playing and even the timelines.
Ian, we're talking about Russell Wilson's favorite target here. So how much does Baldwin's injury hurt his quarterback's value?
Certainly doesn't help, but I mean, the Seahawks have more or less been the one-man rush show for the last 2 years anyway. I mean, I think Russ is going to rush no matter who you put around him. I mean, like I said earlier, we saw Will Dissly become, one of the biggest fantasy factors of week 1 out of seemingly nowhere. So I think Russ Wilson really has one of the most fantasy-friendly combinations in the league of rush attempts and that willingness to throw the ball downfield. So whether it's Tyler Lockett, Brandon Marshall, whoever it's going to be, I'm pretty confident Russ is going to keep putting up points. As for this Monday night in Chicago, that's a little bit tougher matchup, but I'm still buying Russ in the long term.
Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier you like Brandon Marshall, digging deep, finding him on the waiver wire if he's available. What about for you, Reed? How much does Baldwin's injury hurt his quarterback's value right here? Baldwin, second in the league in touchdown catches since the start of the 2015 season.
Yeah, I think if you draft him in season long, you drafted him pretty early, right? Based on the fact that we thought every receiver was 80 to 85%, or every player who says that they're X percentage, is kind of really guessing on what they are. So I think this does hurt him a little bit. Ian's right, though. Russ Wilson has been the one-man show in Seattle for quite some time. Jimmy Graham obviously being gone with the touchdown upside in the red zone, you put in Brandon Marshall, but Brandon Marshall is someone that was almost cut at the beginning of this season, towards the end of preseason. So I think Tyler Lockett, yeah, you're going to see him rushing a little bit more, right? You're going to try and scheme a little bit, but Schottenheimer's a run-first guy. We have to figure out if Chris Carson and Rashad Penny and what this run game is. So I think you're going to start to focus more on the run game. Schottenheimer's already a guy who likes to run the ball. So I think we see an uptick in percentage of run plays. But that also includes Russ. So it doesn't affect it too much at the early onset.
Karin, how close to an MVP level will Russell Wilson have to play at now that his favorite target is out for an indefinite amount of time?
You have to turn into like Black Jesus for these guys to actually have a chance. Like, the journalist in me just thinks about that whole Sports Illustrated story that came out last week, and like how that whole franchise just fell apart. That could have been a dynasty because everybody chose Russell Wilson. And you think about this, like, that defense isn't the same. Every season, they're like 4, 5, 6, 7 different running backs back there because somebody gets hurt or they're not good enough. And now Doug Baldwin's gone. Like, what else do you expect this man to do? Yes, he's a great one-man show, but I'm not buying tickets to that show unless you give them to me for free, just because at some point, good shows come to an end. And I just feel like this is going to be the beginning of the end of the great Russell Wilson show.
Oh, man. Kind of depressing there. All right, Tennessee tight end Delanie Walker will miss the entire season after suffering a pretty gruesome ankle injury against Miami. What's his long-term prognosis, doctor?
So, a dislocation of your ankle is a bad injury. It rips apart a bunch of the soft tissue that overlies the ankle, and I'm going to show you some more props here.
Yeah.
You've got all these muscles and tendons and ligaments stabilizing that ankle. To break it and to pop the entire thing, now that is a tremendous amount of force. Obviously, his season's done. He's going to get plates and screws put in. Supposedly today that was going to happen. But the problem is all that soft tissue damage, and you're looking at significant long-term issues here. So it's going to affect his ability to cut, to run, his mobility, his agility. All of that in the future gets affected. So for next season, this becomes a big concern for his effectiveness and his ability to really perform.
Yeah, Doc, you consider his age too. He's 34. This guy was.
It looked so bad though. I mean, it was like just.
This guy's a vital part of this team's offense, which is why they gave him that 2-year extension. But again, 34 years old. You're not getting any younger, right?
The only thing that could have made it worse is had it popped through the skin, which it didn't. So I mean, this is a bad injury.
Okay.
Karin can't even. Karin's like about to toss his cookies.
I'm 34. I'm the guy who wears like the knee brace and has to put his bio-freeze all over his naked knees and shoulders when I go play ball every week. So like,
is it the copper brace?
Yeah, like this is really. I understand, guys. Like your body, once you get to this age. I can't do anything.
No. You definitely, you definitely understand the beating that he takes on a football field every week.
Aren't you 34?
Compared to your YMCA
Aren't you
men's
34?
league. I am 34. I feel great. Look at this. For crying out loud.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
but Karin, who do you think benefits the most on the Titans roster in terms of targets now?
So this is going to be a surprise, but if you think about it, kind of makes sense. My pick is Dion Lewis. I think about the way that he was used in New England. He was like a scat back. They put him in a slot. Third down situations, Brady would throw to him. Mariota's, we know his history at Oregon in the spread offense. And Tennessee's offense has always been better when they put some of those concepts and let Mariota be Mariota. So why not give him an Oregon-type back in Dion Lewis and see what happens? Because that guy is like a juke button machine. So why not give him the most touches? Because if you look at that depth chart at their receivers and the rest of their backs and that tight ends, it's slim picking. So why not just give it to Dion Lewis?
Reed, who do you think will benefit on Tennessee right now that Delaney Walker's out?
Yeah, I have to agree with Karin 100% here, especially if Blaine Gabbert is under center. Look what he did to Carlos Hyde's production, right, in San Francisco. This guy got 10-plus targets in some games, and he averaged 5.5 targets over the season. Now, that tapered off a little bit, and we still don't know Mariota, and Dr. Pratt can probably tell us what's going on with Mariota and the tingling in his throwing hand. But if Gabbert's under center, even if it's Mariota, I think you do roll out Dion Lewis a little bit more. He outsnapped and outcarried Derrick Henry, and he just performed a lot. He just looked a lot better as well. So now if you don't have your possession tight end on the third downs, like Karin was saying, you're going to go to your guy who can get you those, who did it in New England and now should be able to do it in Tennessee. So I like Dion Lewis there.
Yeah. All right, Ian, what do you think? I mean, Dion Lewis, I mean, it seems like a good go-to, maybe one of the wide receivers, though.
Yeah, I'm thinking their number one receiver, Corey Davis. We saw him have a team high 13 targets last week. And look, this was the number 5 overall pick in last year's draft. I mean, they didn't take him that high to watch him be a complimentary option on offense. And now that Mariota's, favorite target, Delaney Walker, is out, I think it's really now or never to see just how many targets they can feed Davis per game. With that said, I think he truly is a talented receiver worthy of that draft position, and give him more shots in the red zone. We saw him score 2 touchdowns against the Patriots in the playoffs last year. I think the best could still be yet to come for Corey Davis.
Hey, Doc, before we get you out of here, I mean, like the tingling in the fingers of Marcus Mariota, I mean, how serious of an injury is this, and what's the potential, time that we could see him out?
So if you look at the video, what I think had happened is that he had a trauma to his ulnar nerve, which is the funny bone nerve. It's that nerve that you hit when you kind of hit the desk when you were a little kid and you had that tingling in your hand. Now that's a low energy injury, so it takes a few minutes for the tingling to go away. But for Mariota, he's got all that force that's coming behind it, and it slams the nerve. The nerve can recover as quick as a few days, or it could take weeks, and it's very, very unpredictable. And unfortunately, it's his throwing.
All right.
Able to throw effectively. So if you can't know the position of your hand on the ball, it's going to affect your throwing. So it's going to be a day-to-day scenario for him, but it could be out for a week or 2.
Tingling in the hands, you just never know.
Nope.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. We're going to have you back for some over-under fun coming up. And thanks, Doc. We appreciate all the props. But we got some baseball tears of joy to play first.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The NHL season is right around the corner, and a couple Original Six teams are wheeling and dealing before the puck drops on 2018. On Tuesday, the Bruins and Rangers completed a trade that is sending defenseman Adam McQuaid to New York in exchange for defenseman Steven Kampfler, a 2019 4th-round pick, and a 2019 conditional 7th-round pick. McQuaid spent over a decade inside the Bruins organization and gave the club some muscle over his tenure. He played in over 450 games for the Bees while totaling 13 goals and 53 assists to go along with 652 penalty minutes. As for Kampfler, this is his second tenure in Boston, as he was with the club for parts of the 2010-2011 season and just 10 games following that year. In that 48-game tenure in Boston, Kampfler was able to put up 12 points, and last season was a bit quiet for him as he only was able to manage 1 point in 22 games played in New York.
All right, we're back with Greg Ehrenberg and Steve Buchanan to help us make picks for tonight's tiers contest.
All right, let's start with tier 1. So help us out here, Greg. Choosing between guys like Mookie Betts, JD, Goldschmidt, Trevor Story.
Goldschmidt!
Who are you taking?
Well, first, I feel way underqualified after we had that super cool thing with the doctor. He's got all kinds of certificates on his wall. I just have a jersey that proves I'm a fan of a shitty basketball team.
Yeah, Greg, I can confirm. Yeah, you're not a doctor.
That's true.
No, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a Knicks fan. So for me, this tier kind of comes down to Mookie Betts or JD Martinez. The Red Sox are implied to have 5.7 runs, the highest on the slate. And I lean towards Mookie just because the Red Sox are going up against the left-handed pitcher here. Betts has been better against lefties this year. Martinez has been better against righties. 211 WRC plus for Mookie against left-handed pitching this year. That's pretty ridiculous. 159 for Martinez. And then it flips against right-hand pitching. So against lefties, go with Mookie. Against righties, go with Martinez.
Who do you feel here, Steve? Keep it PG rated, please.
Yeah, no worries. It's a family show, you know what I mean? I'm going with JD Martinez here. I mean, first off, Barrecki on the road, 367 WOBA with a 4.84 FIP. Then you have JD Martinez, 430 WOBA at home, 291 isolated power against lefties in that spot. I mean, absolutely, Mookie Betts is a great option. Any Red Sox bat in this lineup is really a great option here, but I love JD Martinez, especially when you don't have to pay a salary for him, so I'm absolutely going to go with Martinez.
All right, let's talk tier 3. Christian Yelich, Matt Carpenter, Charlie Blackmon, JT Realmuto, AJ Pollock, and Brandon Nimmo. Who is looking good to you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Matt Carpenter. Joe Musgrove is someone that people are looking at on this slate, but he struggles against left-handed bats. I mean, he's fantastic against righties, but guess who's going to benefit here because of those struggles against lefties? It's definitely Matt Carpenter. I mean, he's not hitting a bajillion home runs like he was earlier in the year, but he's still averaging 8.5 DK fantasy points over his last 10 games. Musgrove against lefties has a 326 WOBA with a 4.32 FIP. I feel like really what's a packed tier here. I think Carpenter's going to go a little overlooked because of the perceived matchup. I think he's a great option here.
Greg, what about you? Who are you looking at? Steve picking somebody who might be a little less chalky.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Charlie Blackmon here. It's not a great matchup for him against Greinke, but it's Coors Field. So how much does it really matter who the other pitcher is? And Greinke, since coming to Arizona, his starts at Coors Field, 4.85 ERA. So he hasn't pitched all that well there. When you go into Coors Field, the altitude, it's such a hitter-friendly environment that I think we could kind of throw out the quality of the pitcher from time to time.
Just chuck it.
All right, tier 4, Steve. Guys named Jose Ramirez, Benintendi, Brantley, Aaron Hicks, Chapman, Didi Gregorius, just to name a few. My guess is you're going with Benintendi. I know you really like the Red Sox bats tonight.
Emerson, you don't know me. I'm not going with Benintendi.
Oh!
What do you mean I don't know you? We hang out for an hour every day, 4 days a week.
Nobody here knows who he is.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I'm going to go with, I like Michael Brantley here. I mean, Brantley just has so many opportunities to knock guys in. It's just hard to ignore. I mean, this guy has 72 RBIs despite just hitting 15 home runs. So it just goes to show the amount of opportunities he gets. They faced Tyler Glasnow, who was absolutely annihilated in his last start against the Blue Jays. Didn't even complete an inning, gave up 7 runs on 5 hits. Brantley is in a prime spot in the lineup, batting second. I think this is a great spot for him and the Indians. But Benintendi, yeah, he's a close second.
Greg, I don't know you, nor do I know who you're going with, so help me out here.
So I'm going to go with Chapman here. I said I was chasing him in the last segment, and I still like him here also. It's a good match for him against Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb, 4.97 ERA on the year, and then also, like we said about Chapman before, really good hitter against righties, really good hitter on the road, hitter-friendly park, so good spot for Chapman here.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you in a bit, but we're going to be right back with our NFL panel to play over-under on some big stat lines.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Fresh off their Week 1 win over the Houston Texans, the Patriots are diving into the free agent pool and adding a couple of receivers for Tom Brady. According to the NFL Network, New England has signed former first-round wideout Corey Coleman to a 1-year deal, and then moments later, Field Yates of ESPN came over the top and reported that former Bears and Broncos receiver Benny Fowler will also be heading up to Foxborough. With Coleman, the Patriots are getting a former first-round pick of the Browns who spent the summer with the Bills before not making their opening roster. Last season, Coleman was able to total 23 catches for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns in just 9 games played. Coleman also has recent success against New England's Week 2 opponent in the Jaguars. Against them last season, he was able to put up 6 catches for 80 yards, so if he's able to get caught up to speed in play, he could have sneaky upside. As for Fowler, he spent the preseason with the Bears, but prior to that was with the Broncos. Last year, he was able to haul in 29 of his 56 targets for 350 yards in 3 scores.
One more go around with the football fanatics, Reed, Karin, and Ian, who can peep on the new Action Network app available on Android and iPhone. Give it a glimpse, please.
All right, guys, we're playing some over-under. So wide receiver Corey Coleman just signed by the Patriots. Over or under 10 targets this season. Basically asking if he's going to actually see the field and be part of the offense. Reed, what do you think?
I think you got to go over here. I mean, there's no wasted energy in New England. I mean, they could easily bring this guy in. And he left Cleveland, said essentially what we saw in Hard Knocks. He wants out because he was running second team. Then he gets cut by the Bills. I mean, the Bills who got put up by 40+ points by the Ravens. So yeah, I can see why this question is being asked. But I'm going to go over here. There's no wasted energy. If you look at Philip Dorsett, he also has injury risk as well. So if you want some insurance and not have to rush around and try and answer all these Des Bryant questions, sign Corey Coleman. You got Benny Fowler there. I think he does see more than 10 targets this season.
Ian, what do you think? Is he going to actually be part of this offense?
Yeah, it looks like the Patriots are trying to just build up a crop of past first rounders with Philip Dorsett and Cordero Patterson out there as well. Yeah. But no, I'm actually not giving up on Corey Coleman just yet. I mean, this is a guy whose closest athletic comp coming out of college was Odell Beckham Jr. And obviously he hasn't shown many glimpses of looking like OBJ on the field, but he did play 4 games with Josh McCown, 4 games out of, 2 years in Cleveland with whoever else they've been putting under center. And he managed to average 13.2 fantasy points per game and scored 3 total touchdowns. So I'm not giving up on Corey Coleman just yet, considering Tom Brady is light years ahead of anyone else he's ever had throwing the ball.
Yeah, Ian, they now have 6 players who were first-round picks by other teams on their roster.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
a lot of
never
guys.
Have first-round picks.
All right,
you got to take other teams.
That's true. Karin, what do you think? Over or under 10?
I'm going way over as resident Patriots fan on this panel, just for this simple reason. If your career hasn't gone the way you thought it was going to go, New England's the place you go to where you resurrect your career and your paycheck and your bank account, because something about Bill Belichick's system made guys that we casted away be good again. And if you go back and watch his Corey Coleman's highlight tape from Baylor, that guy was like a human video game. So if he's ever going to get anywhere close to that, it's probably going to be in Foxborough. But if he doesn't do right, he's probably going to be out of the league after this. Because if you can't make it in New England, they can't revive your career, then you might as well just go to Toronto and play with Johnny Manziel or something.
Yeah, cut by the Browns and Bills. So naturally, Coleman will be a Pro Bowler for the Patriots by week 8. And Ben Roethlisberger, he'll cost you $6,900 facing Kansas City. Over under 25 points.
I'm always buying Big Ben at home. He surpassed 25+ points at home. 11 of 19 games since 2015. Only Drew Brees has racked up more total 25+ point games at home. And I mean, look at this Chiefs secondary. They couldn't stop anyone in the preseason, and we get to week 1, and guess what? The defense still isn't magically fixed. So Phillip Rivers went for 33 DraftKings points against them last week. And, you said 25, but I might even take the over on 30 for Big Ben.
Oh, baby, I liked that. Aim big, miss big. All right, Reed, who do you think, or what do you think? Over, under 25 points here, bud? Ian has me sold.
I think it's aim small, miss small, but I like what you're doing there. Yeah, I'm going to say over. I would usually go under with Big Ben, and the home road splits, like Ian was saying, is a narrative that you're going to play here. Big Ben's a slow starter. I think QBR in 2016 in September was around 86, 83, and then in the low 90s in 2017. So he's a slow starter, but like Ian was saying, this secondary in Kansas City just gave up a ton of yards and a ton of production to the Chargers. You look at Phillip Rivers, who went for, I think, 33 DK fantasy points. You look at Big Ben, you look at Antonio Brown going home. Absolutely. So I'm going to say over.
All right. Aim big, miss big, Reed. You know what they say. Karin, what do you think? Over, under 25 points? These guys are both sold on the over.
I'm not sold. I mean,
nice.
We call him Big Ben, but when's the last time he's actually been Big Ben? Let's just really be honest with ourselves.
Well, he had a pretty impressive tie this weekend.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. We're talking about his ties. He hasn't been the guy we've known him to be for a while, and he's been living off the legend that he created for himself. And I'd rather buy him low and be shocked that I missed out than, go all in on him and he disappointed me.
All right.
I will say, if you saw a picture on Twitter of Big Ben, he was wrapped with like 8 bags of ice on his shoulder, his oblique, and he usually doesn't practice Wednesdays, so don't be surprised if you see him not practicing on Wednesday. So I do see the injury concern is something potentially, but I think he'll be fine.
Dude, this guy has injured every body part that you could even imagine.
That's true.
Like 50 injuries a season.
Guys, David Johnson, that seems like an exaggeration. David Johnson, the 4th highest priced running back at $8,200, facing a very good defense in the LA Rams, thinking over or under 20 points, Karin.
I'm going over with this. Like, I watched the Rams, and, you know, they were okay. They're all right. Beast mode ran through them on that one play and drug the whole stadium with them, so why can't David Johnson get over 200 points?
Ian, what do you think? Over or under?
Yeah, I'm taking the over. You know, I know it was a disappointing week 1 for them. Redskins' rush defense was really terrible last year, and Cardinals still couldn't really get anything going. But look, I mean, the Rams, when they did kind of redo their defense this offseason, they gave up Alec Ogletree, and now Mark Barron's missed week 1. He's looking doubtful heading into week 2. So really a lot of questions at linebacker, and DJ had 9 targets last week. So, you know, captain check down Sam Bradford is always more than content with just tossing the ball to his underneath receivers. So I think the volume is going to be there for DJ to get over 20-plus points, as he did in 11 of 16 games in 2016.
Reed, Johnson had 9 carries for 37 yards on Sunday. Obviously, the offense couldn't get much going, but moving forward, what do you think, over under?
I want to go over here with those guys. The Rams, look, the Rams aren't a bounce back or get right defense, but there is some stuff. If you look at Marshawn Lynch, Jalen Richard, and these guys, they did have holes to run through. There were alleys to run through with that defense. They're a pass rushing defense, and so if you look at how they're scheming with Aqib Talib and Peters, they want to take the ball away. It's a Wade Phillips type offense, and Ian is right. Like these linebackers are stretched pretty thin. Barron's coming off of an Achilles and now ankle injury that is scary. He is their best defender. So David Johnson, look, negative game script could potentially decrease his volume, but he's the best that these guys have. So yeah, I'm going to say over.
All right, thanks, guys. We got to cut the segment short because Reed talks way too much. Now here's Pat Mayo with, I know, lots of boo birds out there. Now here's Pat Mayo with what to do if you're eyeing some of those Seahawks wide receivers.
Marshall #1, like I would go Marshall over Lockett while Baldwin is out.
I would too, but I would go Lockett over everybody not named Marshall and John Brown.
Really?
Yeah, look, I mean, you look at it, he's the number. This was the excitement people had to begin with because he was the number 2. And then he was the number 2 yesterday, and he still got all that use yesterday. I mean, he had, what I want to say, top 25 day? Wasn't he? He was higher than that, possibly.
He had, what, 4 catches for like 50 yards and a touchdown?
Yeah, but that gets you inside the top 25.
Sure,
I mean,
but if he doesn't catch the touchdown, he doesn't do anything. He has a Nyheim Hines day.
Yeah, he's got almost 10 points.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Nyheim Hines, who you didn't even want.
No, but the fact is, I'm going to expect that kind of usage every single week for Tyler Lockett because he's the number 2 there. He's the number 2 for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but I don't know that if his usage is going to change all that much. I think he just might have a role in this offense, and that's his role. Like, he only ended up with 5 targets, and they weren't even throwing to Baldwin for most of the game.
I'm just telling you, I'm on Tyler Lockett. What, you think yesterday's game is definitively what they're going to do all season long?
No, I don't. I don't, but I just don't want to swing the complete other way. I mean, I get where the upside comes in, but it might depend on your team construction as well. But I just think he's going to be a big boomer bust player. I really do.
I don't think he's going to be that big of a boomer bust. I think he's going to be a pretty consistent, solid player with some boom upside. You know, yes, again, the touchdowns, but I'm not going to complain that much about 4 for 50. Like 4 for 50 in yesterday's game, as you mentioned, they weren't passing that much, but the use was there. And Doug Baldwin was out for a good portion of the game. Yes, Brandon Marshall looks really good and looks like he did 3 years ago before he started dealing with injuries and such, but it's still Brandon Marshall. I still want Tyler Lockett because of his explosive. Tyler Lockett's basically John Brown for this offense.
No, I don't think so. I think that if we had to bet right now who's going to see a higher market share and overall target share and who ends up with more receptions, it's going to be John Brown.
Yeah, now we're just done with Michael Crabtree?
I'm not done with Michael Crabtree. I just think that there are enough other pieces in this offense that I think they're going to lean very heavily on Brandon Marshall.
Will Disley?
Jaron Brown is still a part of this offense. And then now they have 2 tight ends. They have a tight end no one even ever heard of who is like good.
No, I'm telling you, this is John Brown and Tyler Lockett are basically the same thing.
I don't think so. I think that John Brown will be more consistent week to week to week.
I think Lockett's going to be just as consistent, and you know how high I was on John Brown.
Yeah, I would prefer John Brown. I think that even someone.
Well, I said I would go John Brown then Lockett. I would just put Lockett third.
All right. I mean, as long as Danny Amendola is healthy, the guy's going to be a target fiend.
What did he do yesterday?
Well, Miami. Okay, can we extrapolate much from that game?
No, but you can extrapolate who had the better game.
I can, before the first weather delay, I think Amendola had 4 catches on 6 targets. They never went back to him because they were up by too much. And then started returning touchdowns.
No, because exactly what happened yesterday is what I've been banging the table for is it's Kenny Stills' offense anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't pick up Kenny Stills.
No, you can't. But you can pick up Tyler Lockett before you pick up Danny Amendola.
For upside purposes, you're right. If I'm just playing week to week to week, Amendola, I think is just going to be more consistent right now. Maybe you might be right on this one. Now that I look at it, I might be completely wrong. I still like Ryan Grant more than I like Lockett, though.
I don't.
Oh, man, Ryan, that offense is going to pass so much.
I know, and look, I just want to make this clear, and this isn't like a look at me thing, but remember how high I was on both Ryan Grant and John Brown this entire preseason, and I'm saying I would pick up Lockett at least right there with John Brown, but ahead of Ryan Grant. Like, that's my belief in my swing in believing in Tyler Lockett, and it started when they signed the contract for him because they definitively wanted him as their number 2, and now with Doug Baldwin out, I'm going Lockett.
All right, about to wrap up this thing we call The Sweat every night, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. But before we can do that, got to get to our highest rated segment, Jessie.
I'm talking about Put Up Your Bukes, loved by all, hated by none. Steve is going to give us 3 picks on tonight's slate and DK fantasy point projections for each one. Then, Greg, we're going to let you chime in, agree, disagree, fight him, whatever. Steve, hit us with that first pick.
Yeah, we're going to go with Mike Fiers for 25 DK fantasy points, just 9,400 tonight. I mean, I don't know what they put in the water in Oakland, but Fiers has been stone cold Steve Austin chugging that thing because he's just been absolutely fantastic since joining that team. 292 WOBA with a 4.41 FIP with a 27K percentage. I mean, the Orioles just essentially just show up to the ballpark and, yeah, we'll get through 9 innings and whatever happens, happens. There's a 302 WOBA with a 132 isolated power over the past 2 weeks. I feel like this is a really safe option on a slate that doesn't really have a lot of safe options. There's some decent options, but not a lot of great options, so he tops my list.
So, Greg, Orioles team doesn't really hit, allegedly. Do you agree or disagree with this, and do you think he's going to get 25 fantasy points?
All right, well, I cleaned out my mouth with soap, and I'm back for another segment. But here's the deal with Fiers. Talk about aim big, miss big. Fiers has only scored 25 DK points 3 times the entire season, and I do expect him to see some regression. He has pitched really well as a member of the Oakland A's, but I think it's a little fluky. For the season, he's at 3.36 ERA, but his FIP at 4.61. That suggests there's been a lot of luck go his way, and he is on the road. He is in Baltimore, which is a hitter-friendly park. While I think that he should pitch okay, I just think that 25 DK points is a really tall order for Fiers, so I'm way under on that number.
Way under, Steve. What about your second Buke?
Yeah, way under for the Orioles. Yeah, they really scare you. Look, we're going to go with G-Man Choi here, 4,000 for 16 DK fantasy points. He draws a great matchup against Shane Bieber. I mean, we all know the knock against the Biebs. It's left-handed bats. They own a 395 WOBA against him, 6 of his 10 home runs allowed. Choi has been on fire lately. I don't know what's up with this dude. 515 WOBA with a 500 isolated power in September with 3 home runs already. He's only 4,000, so he can absolutely help you save some salary, especially at the first base position, which is going to be pretty chalky with some of the top options up there. So Choi, baby, get him in there.
Choi, only $4,000. Greg, what do you think? Do you think he could get 16 DK fantasy points?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Bukes on this one. I think that it's a good spot for him. Not only does Bieber struggle against left-handed bats, like Steve was saying, but Manchoi has also hit right-handed pitching really well. 394 WOBA against righties this year. He has 2 homers his last 3 games. He has 8 homers, just 153 at-bats this year, which if you extrapolate over a full season, that's a 30-plus homer year. So, yeah, I like him at a pretty cheap price.
All right, really quick, your last Buke, Steve.
Yeah, Gleyber Torres, 4,500 for 16 DK fantasy points. I mean, he usually finds himself near the bottom of the order, but I love the spot for him against Tyler Duffy. I mean, Duffy's been an absolute nightmare for the Twins pitching staff because they make him all look bad because of how bad he's been pitching. 19 runs on 23 hits and 19 innings pitched. If you're thinking about stacking the Yankees tonight, this could be a good way to differentiate your lineup because he bats lower in the lineup. So Torres, baby, 4,500.
Greg, does he get 16 fantasy points?
This one's a no for me. I do really like Gleyber Torres, but he hasn't hit as well in the second half of the season he did in the first half of the year. A 111 WRC plus since the All-Star break. He was at 141 before. 111 is still a solid number, but for a 4,500 price tag, I don't really think he gets the 16 DK points. He scored over 10 fantasy points just once in his last 8 games. I'd rather go elsewhere at second base.
Let's pay up for DeGrom, though. Okay.
All right, you guys. Need your slate-approved picks for tonight. Slate. Greg, you're up first.
Jacob DeGrom, just to take another dig at Steve.
Oh, there you go, Steve. Come back at him. Hit him with the slate-approved,
Have fun with
Steve.
that one. I'm going to go with Choi and not pay for DeGrom and save a ton of money and not look like a fool.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to pay for DeGrom.
You got anything to say to that, Greg?
I love you, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so much. That language is so much better than the language you used earlier at the show.
Yeah, you know, be careful. Steve is basically every time he's on with some guys, they end up not on the show the next day. So
because they give bad takes. It's not my fault.
It's not. No, it's not your
Greg,
fault.
hope to see you and your Stoudemire jersey back tomorrow, bud.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
You too, Steven.
Unlikely.
Unlikely. All right, Emerson, what did you learn today?
I learned that Greg's got a potty mouth. Yeah, you do, Greg.
Yeah, and I learned that you should agree with Steve or else you might not be on the show the next day. Just kidding. Do not do that. Don't just agree with each other, please. Thank you. All right, guys, this has been The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield. He's Emerson Lotzia. We'll be back. Today. Great job. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern time.
Right here. Be there, be square.